These stories are true. 4 words that have confirmed the explosive allegations of sexual misconduct against one of the biggest names in comedy.
There is no greater threat to women than men. We're the #1 threat to women.
Louis C.K. just hours ago acknowledging that the accusations that he masturbated in front of 3 women and behaved inappropriately with 2 others are true.
Louis C.K. was revered in comedy. He was considered by many people a feminist and a person who empowered women. So to have these allegations come out was really a shock to fans.
A team of New York Times reporters, including Cara Buckley and Milena Rysick, broke the bombshell story.
There had been rumors about this story for years and years.
Emboldened by the seismic shift of women speaking out after the Harvey Weinstein scandal, 2 female comedians, Dana Min Goodman and Julia Wolof, now telling these reporters what happened with Louis C.K. all those years ago.
They had this big break in 2002. They got to perform at the U.S. Comedy Arts Festival in Aspen, which is a high bar for comedy. After their show one night, Louis C.K. invited them back to his hotel to hang out. They thought, cool, he's a comedian that we admire.
And they're together.
They're together. They didn't think his intentions were anything beyond collegial. And they went back to his hotel room, and before, they sat down, and before they even had a chance to take off their coats and hats, he said, "Can I take out my penis?" And they laughed it off. And then he proceeded to get totally naked and he began masturbating.
They laughed it off because they thought it was a joke.
They thought it was a joke.
And did they consent to doing this?
They said they did not consent. They couldn't believe it was happening. And then when it was over, they fled the room and they were in a state of shock.
The comedy duo says they initially didn't report what happened to authorities.
Why did they feel they couldn't go to police?
They weren't sure whether it was illegal or whether their story, would get the right attention from the police. Everything that happened to them they felt very surreal and they didn't know what to do.
But they say they realized something needed to be done. Goodman and Wolof tried to shame C.K. by telling their story within the comedy world.
And they began to tell everyone that they could. And they said people began to sort of back away as if the information they were saying was dangerous. Their takeaway was, we're being warned, we shouldn't talk about this.
Best-selling author, comedian, and virgin until I was 27.
Heather McDonald is an actress and comedian based in Los Angeles. She knows the dark side of the entertainment world all too well.
The minute you talk about somebody that's powerful, they can ruin you. They can blackball you. They can keep projects from happening. And so when people do say, let me tell you this story, oftentimes someone will say, I'd keep that to yourself.
The comedy duo told the Times reporters that it was C.K.'s manager, Dave Becky, in particular, who intimidated them.
Mr. Becky has denied that he threatened any of these women. What do the women you've talked to say?
Dave Becky is an incredibly powerful kingmaker in the comedy world. Especially if you're new to the field and you're just making your way in it, you wouldn't want to anger that person. You wouldn't want to start off on the wrong foot with that person.
Among the other accusers, Rebecca Corey, who was working on a television pilot produced by Courtney Cox and David Arquette, when she says she was approached by C.K.
It was 2005. She was a producer and actor on a show called Midnightly News. Louis C.K. was a guest on the show. He stopped her, pulled her aside, and said, "Can I masturbate in front of you?" And she said no, and she was horrified. Word reached Courtney Cox and David Arquette. They talked about whether to shut down production. Rebecca decided against it, but she was absolutely appalled.
The Times reports that Arquette and Cox confirmed the incident. Cox writing in an email that what happened to Rebecca was awful. McDonald says that even though the comedy world is raunchy at times,
I'm married, so I have to pay people to touch me, and
it's not a justification for harassment.
People were saying about the comics that spoke up, the female comics, that they had an edgy, dirty act. And that is no excuse. A female comic does not mean that she cannot be sexually harassed, that she cannot be sexually offended.
Louis C.K., part of an exclusive group of Hollywood heavyweights, now joining another club. Men all accused of varying degrees of sexual misconduct.
We're there to do stand-up. We don't want to see your penis in the green room.
A staple on the comic circuit, Louis C.K. rose to fame poking fun at his appearance.
I'm the guy that women see and they go, And I'm like, I know, but let me just talk to you for a minute.
And his sexual hang-ups and peccadillos, as he did in this
That's
HBO special.
My problem. These days, my problem is very simple. It's trying to find a place in my house where I can masturbate without somebody bothering me.
He turned what seemed like raw
really
self-awareness
difficult.
into mega stardom, live tours, comedy specials, and a hit TV show that he wrote, directed, and edited. But his material, which never shied away from talking about his sexual impulses, often turned dark.
Women try to compete. They're like, well, I'm a pervert. You don't know. I have really sick sexual thoughts. No, you have no idea. You have no idea.
Comedy that so many may have chuckled at, but psychologist and sex therapist Chris Donahue says this is no laughing matter.
Louis C.K. has a history, comedically, of frequently making jokes about masturbation and sexual assault. And he's normalizing sexually assaulting women and has a history of that. So that is a red flag, and that is a huge concern.
What? No.
In an episode of Louis from 2014, his character tries to drag his longtime crush into the bedroom against her wishes. It drew ire at the time, and it's now taking on new meaning.
You want to do something, you want to try something, but you don't. No, you can't. It's for some reason you can't. So I'm going to take control. And I'm going to make it something happen.
At the time, CK responded to the criticism saying, "I don't think you can call it rape. It was a kiss on the mouth. Rape is a real, serious, and bad thing." In 2014, he spoke to ABC News about his willingness to push boundaries in his comedy.
I think sex is a fascinating subject, and it's a hilarious subject because it's awkward and it's high stakes, and it makes you feel great or it makes you feel terrible. It's a huge array of experience.
And it's the real darkness behind the comedy that may lead to his downfall. In his lengthy statement, Louis C.K. says that he is remorseful. "The power I had over these women is that they admired me, and I wielded that power irresponsibly, which disabled them from sharing their story and brought hardship to them when they tried." He adds, "There is nothing about this that I forgive myself for, saying I have spent my long and lucky career talking and saying anything I want. I will now step back and take a long time to listen." But Netflix has already canceled his stand-up special, while HBO's removing his projects from their on-demand services. They also announced he will no longer be participating in an upcoming comedy benefit. And just this evening, FX announced they were cutting ties with the comedian.
China is a minor. A minor what?
His latest movie, I Love You, Daddy, scheduled to be released next week, has been shelved. Some of its scenes had already garnered criticism.
He really likes to fly close to the sun without getting burned. There's also a scene in it of a character aggressively mimicking masturbation. So it really is the million-dollar question: life imitating art, art imitating life.
Times reporter Cara Buckley says she confronted him about it after the screening.
And I said, "It seems very audacious for you to put an extended scene of someone masturbating, considering the rumors." And he said, "I never thought of that." And I just thought, okay.
While the current accusations do not involve physical contact, Donahue says this kind of harassment must still be taken seriously.
People often believe, and Louis C.K. actually talked about this in his statement, that if I'm not physically touching someone, that I'm not necessarily assaulting them or harming them. But it does. It can create an emotional, psychological trauma.
Donahue hopes that CK's response today will be a wake-up call to other men.
What we're doing in the media and in culture is talking about how many women have been sexually assaulted or raped this year. And that's not the way to look at it. The question should be, how many men have raped or sexually assaulted this year? We need to talk about it in an active way and hold men accountable and really center them around the dialogue.
For Nightline, I'm Juju Chang in New York.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.